Here's what we're working on today, October 20th, while I am out. Yesterday, you chose an Enlightenment philosopher to think about and to investigate more in depth. And I gave you a reading, one page typically, front and back, about your philosopher. I hope you've already finished reading that article and highlighting the answers to the stop here and discuss questions on the paper itself. And that way you've read the whole article front and back and are ready to now start working on your 1020 philosopher poster. To help with this philosopher poster, embedded within my Canvas assignment and also embedded here is a link to what I call the main idea questions. These are intended to guide your thinking about your poster and help you figure out what to illustrate about your philosopher. So I'm going to go into the Canvas assignment right now. Again, this is the 1020 philosopher poster. It's located under Wednesday in week 7. You are going to create a poster. Mr. Sweet's going to hand out poster paper to you that illustrates the 4 main philosophies or ideas your philosopher had about government or laws or rights or society. You may add a 5th drawing and caption for extra credit on the back of your poster paper if you'd like to do that. The images you create should be drawn by you. Please don't include photos of your philosopher or pictures of the books that they wrote as your images, because these are not illustrations of their philosophies, their ideas. Instead, those are biographical details. Each illustration you include should have a 1 to 2 sentence caption explaining the philosophy or the idea being illustrated. So to help figure out what to draw, within this Canvas assignment, please click on where it says Main Idea Questions. This will tell you what concepts to focus your illustrations on. So when I open this, here are the focus questions for Baron de Montesquieu, if you're doing Baron de Montesquieu. We scroll down, the next section is Mary Wollstonecraft, so these will help guide your drawings about Mary. These are the questions to help focus you for Thomas Hobbes, Caesar Beccaria, Voltaire, Plato, and here is Rousseau. I'm actually doing Rousseau as my sample, so I don't think anybody's really working on Rousseau. So these are my 4 questions. Number 1 was, what was Rousseau's views of human nature and why did he think that way? Number 2 is, what was Rousseau's philosophy of social contract? Number 3 is, what type of government did Rousseau support? And number 4 is, what conditions did Rousseau believe were needed to maintain a just democracy? These 4 questions you should be able to find answers to by looking back to the reading that you did yesterday. Let's see if I can find an example on an article that looks like this. Okay, so these questions are guiding you to go back to content from your biographical briefing readings. When you scroll down, you're going to see my sample poster that I created. I like to download it usually. Oh, here it is. Here's my sample. So the very first question was asking, what's Rousseau's belief about human nature and why does he think that way? And here's my illustration of this. Rousseau was a guy who believed that human nature was good, but corrupted by wealth inequalities in society. His life experiences of being abused by a poor shoemaker and having his education paid by a wealthy family led him to believe this. So, when Rousseau was a kid, his parents died, he was orphaned, and in order to try to support himself, he got himself an apprentice with a cobbler. But the cobbler who hired him or took him on and agreed to provide him room and board was really abusive with Rousseau and beat him to try to get him to work harder and longer and faster. So here's the image of the cobbler saying, "Work faster or you'll be sorry." He's got like a whip or a switch there. And here's Rousseau with his little shoe saying, "I got to get away from this guy." So Rousseau escaped that cobbler that he had an apprenticeship with, and he ended up taking refuge with this really wealthy family. So here I have images of them holding a lot of money, and this wealthy family, for no other reason, just the goodness of their hearts, decided to take Rousseau in and provide him with a college education and provide him with clothes and food, and really took care of Rousseau. And Rousseau was really kind of astounded by their generosity. And these life experiences made him think about human nature and made him think that, like, these folks had the ability to take care of him and be generous with him because they had more than their basic needs met. versus he thought reflected on the cobbler and said this guy was struggling to provide for his own family, and was greedy and selfish, more out of his basic lack of I don't know, lack of own basic necessities himself. So these were his views on human nature. What's important to note about my pictures is they are totally not like Da Vinci work, right? They're very simple, but they illustrate the main points. Here's another image. Here's Rousseau's idea of the social contract, which I think was my second guiding question. And a social contract is just laws that everybody agrees to. And my crazy concept, way of teaching the social contract is we all agree to live under laws because laws help us keep safe. So here's this little guy who, I don't know, his favorite thing to do is to go around shooting a gun blindfold. Here he's throwing away his blindfold. And he's saying, okay, I'll give up my blindfold and agree not to walk around shooting a gun blindfold as long as everybody else is agreeing to do the same. So the rules we all agree on, we're going to respect each other's property. We're not going to have any distracted driving. We're not going to go around shooting guns blindfold. And all these little green, purple, pink men all agreed to this rule. Okay. And so here's this guy saying, hey, remember, we agreed to do these actions. And this little boy saying, hey, I like that. These are our rules because my toy is safe. We agreed to respect property, and now I know my property will be respected. So Rousseau believed that the only just government is created by the people in a social contract, where all citizens agree to agree directly to all the laws that they're going to live under. My next image is that Rousseau only supported direct democracy and not representative democracy. He believed there was too much danger in elected representatives becoming corrupt with power, so he believed people should only be held accountable to laws that they vote on themselves. So here is a man with a green sign, like a green check mark, saying this is what he agrees to, and here's this voter saying, should the speed limit be 65 on the freeway? And he got to vote directly yes, and he's happy with this law. He is saying, this one is saying, this is what he doesn't like when we vote for representatives to pass laws for you. And your options are you can choose green man to be your representative or blue man to be your representative. And this little citizen is unhappy because he's like, I don't want to vote for a citizen to make decisions for me. I want to vote for all the laws myself. Okay. So that's what he thinks it takes for democracy to work, is that all people have to have a say in every law that they are going to be expected to follow. And then finally, my last caption is about what it takes to have a just democracy. And he said that he only trusted direct democracy because he believed it was best if people lived in small, close-knit communities with really small governments, and this would help keep government local and manageable for all people to vote on every issue. So he probably would have approved in laws being passed in the village of Linwood, where the population is much smaller. He probably wouldn't have been such a fan of the massive United States government because there are so many millions of people. And with such a large country, it's impossible for every citizen to vote on every single law. Okay. So these are just some illustrations that explain Rousseau's basic ideas. And each question that from the main idea checklist is what I used. Let's see, I think it's this one to kind of guide what I drew my illustrations about. Okay. So this is what you're working today. The biggest resource to help you is going to be looking back to the reading assignment that looks something like this for information on those main idea questions. Your artwork does not need to be extremely elaborate, but it needs to express the main ideas of the philosophers. Okay, so here you can see just my illustration and visual scoring criteria. Each visual, each of the 4 pictures you draw is worth 4 points apiece. And the visual should be detailed and show multiple aspects of the definition or of the question. It should be really clear to me how the stick figures you draw or the symbols you draw reflect the thinker's main ideas. And you should use captions or labels to add clarity to the picture. Okay, so that's the goal for visuals. And then your captions should be relevant and use accurate details to answer and explain one of the thinker's main ideas. So the goal is to, in a sentence or two, describe most relevant details about the philosopher's ideas. Focusing on the main ideas is also worth 6 points. So I'm giving you these main idea questions because I really want them to guide your work. If you choose, instead of talking about these questions, to tell me about one of the books Rousseau wrote that is not related to these things, then you're not sticking with the main ideas. Okay. So use those questions as your driver, as opposed to going and talking about random ideas about the philosopher. Okay. Um, this poster paper is going to be handed out by Mr. Sweet so that you can work on the assignment. And my plan is to allow you to have today to work on it and some time tomorrow to work on it. But it's really important that you're making good use of your time, because if you don't finish it up by tomorrow, you're probably going to end up having to do some work on it over the weekend. So please, and we will be sharing these posters in small groups with our classmates, not huge presentations, but having small conversations with teams of students about what you created. So please make it your best work. Okay. Thanks. Have a great day.